Hey guys, so the workout I have for you today is pretty straightforward. I call it hundreds. We're going to do 10 exercises for 100 repetitions each. So the workout in total is going to be 1,000 repetitions. It's pretty straightforward, but it'll give you a great workout. So for this workout, you will need an object of weight. I'm going to use a kettlebell just for the demonstration. You can use a kettlebell, a dumbbell, or any object you have at home that has some weight to it, but you want it to be something that you can grip pretty easily. So all of our 10 different movements today are overall going to target the entire body. So we'll have some lower body exercises, some upper body exercises, and a few that are going to incorporate total body movements to get the heart rate up as well. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with a goblet squat. So for the goblet squat, you want to grab your object of weight and hold it at your chest. Make sure your posture is nice and tall. You want to keep your feet about hips width apart and make sure you toe out a little bit just by externally rotating the hips. That's going to ensure that we get a nice good depth in our squat and maintain proper posture. So as you get ready to do your squat, make sure you keep your chest nice and tall. You're going to sit back like you're sitting into a chair, keeping the weight through the heels. That way the feet stay flat on the ground, and you're going to get as low as possible in each squat. And as you come out of the squat, make sure you extend the hips fully at the top by squeezing through the glutes. And you're going to do this for 100 repetitions. Now, as you're doing these movements, 100 repetitions is obviously a lot of work. So feel free to break it up into smaller sets of 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever is manageable for you to get to that whole 100 reps of the one exercise before you move on to the next exercise. So next we're going to do a weighted kettlebell swing, or again, if you don't have a kettlebell, you can use any object of weight to perform this movement. So a kettlebell swing type movement, remember, is going to be a great hip opener to activate the hips, activate the glutes, and also to work the posterior side of the body, everything down the back side of the body, from the back muscles, especially the lower back muscles, the hips, the glutes, and the hamstrings. So to start your kettlebell swing, bring your feet about a little bit wider than hips width apart and bring the weight to the center of your body with a nice good grip. We're going to hinge forward from the hips by bowing forward from the chest just a little bit, bring the weight through the body, and then squeeze through the glutes and pop the hips upward to bring the weight upward past the chest to about eye level. Next, we're going to move to the upper body briefly for a single arm bent over row. So because it's 100 repetitions, we'll do 50 on each arm. So for our bent over row, we want to take one leg and bring it forward, and whatever leg is forward, the opposite arm should be holding your weighted object. We're going to hinge forward from the hips just a little bit, so the chest should be angled down towards the ground. The arm that's holding the weight should be fully extended. Now you can rest the opposite hand on your leg, but just don't push on your thigh and especially on your knee. So with the front knee slightly bent and the back leg extended from the hip, we're now properly stabilized, and we're going to pull this weight up by bringing the elbow up and back alongside the body, like we're pulling the elbow up towards the ceiling or towards the sky in my case. And again, that's going to be 50 repetitions, and then we'll switch sides. So again, to show you the other side of our single arm row, bring one leg forward, bending that knee, back leg should be extended, arm holding the weight is extended, so properly stabilized, and then simply row the weight upward and keep the arm close to the body throughout. Next, we're going to move into a Romanian deadlift. So this is a stiff-legged deadlift with nice straight legs as we perform the movement. It's another movement that incorporates a hip hinging type of mechanic, and we're also going to be strengthening the hamstrings, glutes, and low back with this exercise. So for our Romanian deadlift, you want nice tall posture, holding whatever weighted object you're using. Your feet should be about hips width apart with toes facing forward. Now you do want the legs straight, but you should still maintain a soft bend in the knee rather than locking out the joint. So from here, the first thing we want to ensure is our posture is nice and tall, so pull the shoulders back and open up the chest. From here, we're going to hinge forward from the hips slowly to keep the back nice and flat as we drop the weight towards the floor, and then extend upward by squeezing through the glutes and extending the hips. And then we'll go back down and then stand it back up. Now you only want to go as far down as you can without having to round your shoulders, lift your heels off the ground, or bend your knees any further. So for our next movement, we'll get down on the ground and do some weighted sit-ups. So for this sit-up movement, you're going to take your weighted object and you're just going to hold it at your chest. Make sure you have a nice good grip on the object. Legs should be extended out away from the body, but just with a slight bend in the knees, sitting up nice and tall to start. From here, we're going to hinge backward till our upper back and shoulders hit the floor or the ground, and then you're going to sit all the way up to the beginning of the starting position. be challenging to begin with, and weighted sit-ups are obviously going to be much harder, you can also modify this movement by doing a weighted crunch. So you're still going to hold your weighted object the same for a weighted crunch. You're just going to lay back, bring your feet flat to the ground with your knees bent, and then place the head flat on the ground, and then you're simply going to lift the head, neck, and upper shoulders off of the mat or the ground, and then lower back down. And you're just going to maintain your weight about chest height. So next we're going to move into a snatch. So a snatch is a single arm movement. We're going to use our weighted object to do this one as well. And it's also going to once again target the posterior chain quite a bit, similar to what we did for a kettlebell swing. In a snatch, you also see some good glute and hip activation, opening up the body with a lot of power as we bring ourselves up out of the bottom of the movement. So for the snatch, you want to start with the weighted object placed between your feet, about hips width apart. You want to go ahead and bend at the waist and at the knees to go ahead and grab that object. And for a snatch, I'm not going to use the object just yet, but for a snatch, what you want to do is explode quickly out of the bottom of the movement, bringing the elbow up first, keeping the arm and the weight close to the body, and then shoot the weight up overhead at the same time as you drop your body down underneath the weight to catch it, and then you will stand the weight up. So again, the trajectory of your weight is going to start from the bottom of the movement, almost in a squat position with the chest up. You're going to pull the weight upward, nice high pull with the elbow, good tight pull with the shoulder, and then we're going to shoot the weight up overhead, extending the arm, dropping underneath the weight, and then standing it up at the end. Now again, because the snatch is a single arm movement, we'll do 50 on one arm and then 50 on the other. Next up, we're going to move into some goblet reverse lunges. So we're going to hold our weighted object at the chest again, just like we did for our squats at the beginning. You want to bring your feet about hips width apart, nice tall posture. We're going to take one leg at a time, step directly backward, lowering that back knee toward the floor or the ground, and that front knee should track right over the front of the foot without exceeding the toes. Then we're going to push off that back leg to return to the starting position, and then we'll alternate. Anytime you do any type of lunge movement, whether it's weighted, reverse lunge, forward lunge, side lunge, what have you, you always want to make sure that the upper body stays nice and tall, stacked over the hips. You shouldn't have to lean the upper body in any direction in order to effectively stabilize your lunge. All right, next we're going back to the upper body with an overhead press. Again, we'll do 50 on each side since it's a single arm movement. So you're going to take your weighted object, choose a hand to start with. We want nice tall posture, and again the feet should be hips width apart, and even though we want to be tall with the legs straight, we're going to maintain just a soft bend in the knee to protect the joint. Alright, from here, holding our weighted object, we're going to press it straight up overhead till the arm is fully extended, and then we're going to drop the weight back down until our palm comes about next to the ear. Anytime you do an overhead press movement, the only thing that should be moving is the arm performing the press. You shouldn't have to flex your torso side to side, and you shouldn't have to use any other part of your body to get the weight overhead. Alright, so for our second to last movement out of our 10, we're going to do a weighted Russian twist. So this is going to target the core and the obliques. So we back down on the ground for this exercise. We want to keep the legs extended away from the body, similar to what we did for our sit-up with the knees slightly bent. Now you're going to grab your weighted object, and again just hold it in front of your chest. We're going to take our upright posture and hinge it just slightly backward by hinging from the hips and keeping that chest nice and open. So that way we're not rounding our posture at all, but we're keeping the upper body and the torso nice and rigid. And then from here we're going to rotate side to side, dropping the weight down towards the floor on each side. Now we're almost there. Our final movement is our only movement that is unweighted. So you can go ahead and set your weight aside. The last movement in our circuit is a 100-second plank. So that's going to equate to about 1 minute 40 seconds of planking. Now again, you can break this up into smaller increments of time if you need to. So recalling our proper setup for a forearm plank, we're We're going to place the elbows on the ground so that the forearms are parallel to one another. We're going to bring the feet back up onto the toes and make sure they're about hips width apart. Now the shoulders should be aligned over the elbows and everything else should be in a nice straight line. That wraps up our hundreds workout for today. Go ahead and give it a try and push yourself to see how well you can do with each of the different movements.